All right, you weenies, gear up because we're going to Weenie Hut Psychiatric Hospital today, and I have a funny feeling most of you won't be let out anytime soon. Okay, being serious now, I didn't think this would be necessary, and frankly, I don't know why I thought that, but here we are. Straight to the point, I don't need your medical advice, random person on the internet, and I definitely don't want it. Before I elaborate, let me just run through all the things I've done or have attempted to do as far as treatment for my schizophrenia. There is going to be some crossover as well as additional things I've done for my other conditions, but schizophrenia is going to be the primary focus here. So, what have I tried? Well, I've been on 3 antipsychotic medications, and I am starting a 4th one. The 3 I've tried are aripiprazole, paliperidone, and olanzapine. I have done various dosages of each and went through them in that order. I'm now starting Vraylar, that's the brand name, and while I wanted, albeit wanted is a very strong word, to try clozapine, or clozapine as some weirdos say it, since it's seemingly like I'm treatment resistant, but I may not be able to do that because of my epilepsy diagnosis. Clozapine, wait, is that the way I originally said it? I don't remember now. How do I normally? Whatever. Clozapine has several black box warnings, one of which is for seizures, which I experience, specifically complex partial seizures, much to my dismay. Thankfully, I don't have convulsions, so I am at least grateful for that, and my heart goes out to people who have to endure those. In spite of everything, I do tend to count myself as very lucky. Ultimately, I haven't gotten much, if anything, out of antipsychotics apart from some rough side effects, let's say, hence the line of thinking that I may be treatment resistant. We generally talk as if I am treatment resistant, but to be clear, there's not like a giant red stamp somewhere that just says, treatment resistance in all caps. Even if that was a thing, I wouldn't expect to receive that stamp anytime soon because people can be very lackadaisical about updating medical information, and even when not doing so is to your detriment. They're not necessarily going to get around to it anytime soon unless you're very lucky. Let's just say I've had some prior experience there, and one professional I saw was even baffled as to why I had such a, I guess, vague diagnosis related to one of my conditions when it was such a clear-cut case by the time I was seeing them. I would say it was probably outdated for at least a year, maybe more. Even I was questioning why I still had that specific diagnosis, but that's a whole other thing. Outside of medication, I've been through psychotherapy. It helped a great deal with my PTSD, although I still have some symptoms, and it helped a bit here and there with depression, but I didn't get anything out of it when it comes to schizophrenia. I wanted to try electroconvulsive therapy, but as it stands, I'm in what I hope is at least a gray area, but it seems like I'm just not going to be allowed to do it at all, if I'm being real with myself, which I guess isn't the biggest loss because the bar in terms of effectiveness with ECT is very low regarding schizophrenia, and I was told that at best I was probably looking at a 30% reduction in symptoms. Plus, given how expensive it is and what the weeks of receiving electroconvulsive therapy and the weeks following it entail, I don't think it would really be worth it anyway, and there was also a significant probability that it would do nothing for me, or so little as to basically be nothing, As far as schizophrenia goes anyway, ECT can be more likely to succeed and be more impactful for those receiving it for other conditions like depression, and even some people receive it for epilepsy as well. It's not even FDA approved for treating schizophrenia, which I didn't know before going into that consultation, and had I known that I may have not even bothered, but I guess it was worth looking into. And before you go commenting about ECT, although it might be too late at this point, let me just say I really don't care what anyone online has to say about it at this point, and I don't mean that as in I don't care if it helped you. I certainly hope it did. And if you or someone you know was negatively impacted by it, my heart goes out to you as well. In that respect, I do care. What I mean is I don't care to read or give consideration towards what people in general have to say about it because the well is so poisoned at this point. It's basically polluted with with every terrible thing imaginable. That's how I feel about it at the very least. I think people, and I'm not trying to talk down to anyone, but I think people are largely at this point incapable of discussing electroconvulsive therapy rationally, and that's for all sorts of reasons, of course. I mean, for one, there is the horrific history of how it was used, for instance, and don't think I'm unaware of that, but there are just so many outdated ideas about it, so much fear-mongering and hysteria that I see, and, great anxiety and terror. And people who aren't even medical professionals or scientists go around claiming they know for a fact ECT did thing X to them or thing Y to their loved ones. The internet is rife with this kind of stuff, and I've seen all sorts of things from people claiming ECT zombified their kid, to that it gave them autism, or that they're just a completely different person and they don't like the person they have become as a result of ECT, or at least what they think is the result of ECT. There are a million things wrong with that, and maybe ECT just needs its own video on this channel, though I don't really want to do it, but maybe it's worth discussing more in depth. It's worth pointing out, too, that people were afraid that vaccines caused autism, for example, and some people still believe that. So we can't always go taking random people's words for things on medical procedures that impact thousands or even millions of people, especially because, and I mentioned this with the medical keto thing before, where I think I mentioned it in that video anyway, where if someone either had a negative experience or a perceived negative experience with ECT, it seems to me that they're going to be more active in, going around fear-mongering over it, or talk, or even just genuinely talk about their experiences, than someone who just got better. The person who got better probably, I think they would tend to just go on with their lives, so. But it's kind of I guess with medical keto, it's the reverse. We're not getting into the medical keto stuff today, so let's just continue forward. Anyway, I just sincerely hope that no one thinks it is an unreasonable take, all of the things I just described. Though I know people will inevitably think it's like the worst thing that's ever been spoken. Anyway, putting the spotlight back on myself, I have also gone through various brain scans. I have done a CAT scan, an MRI, and an EEG. CAT scans aren't that bad, at least to me. I didn't think it was. Relatively quick, but then again, that's in comparison to the other two that I had to do, which suck monkey butts. So I guess if you haven't had the experience of the MRI and EEG, maybe you think CAT scans are horrible, but pretty quick and painless procedure, really. I mean, it doesn't last long, and all you gotta do is just lay there. The EEG is actually how the abnormalities in my right frontal lobe that led to the partial epilepsy diagnosis were discovered. More on that in the great big diagnosis video I planned, but for now, I'll just say that while the research is not great here, and my care team doesn't know this for sure, it is possible that some or all of the particular anomalies that were found could also be why I experienced schizophrenia symptoms. So my schizophrenia could be, what's a good word for it? I guess we could say physiologically rooted rather than, say, psychological or psychiatric, which could also explain why medication and therapy have been unsuccessful in treating it. However, the research, as I alluded to, has a long way to go, and it's unclear even why people develop schizophrenia. There are a lot of potential causes that have been explored, and there's evidence behind those, but to my knowledge, unless things have changed recently, we don't have anything definitive yet. And last but not least, I have been, and maybe, I don't know if this has left people in suspense or what, but I have never been hospitalized in a psychiatric institution. I am, for one, uninterested in doing that. I imagine the reasons are probably obvious. And I have never met the legal requirements to be involuntarily committed in Ohio. I've actually even, and I've referenced this before too, I've even fought against a proposed bill that would make it easier to involuntarily commit people, and seemingly I've had some success in doing that, though the bill isn't dead yet, so perhaps I've only postponed the inevitable. But to my knowledge, it's not dead. I haven't gotten any updates on it, but we shall see where it all goes. If you think I belong in an institution, Well, I'm sorry about your luck, bucko, because the law is on my side on this occasion. I have been threatened with involuntary commitment, though, when I didn't even meet the requirements. That happened not long after I was diagnosed, but unlike ye landlubbers, I am quite knowledgeable on my mental health laws, and I would recommend that you stay up to date on those, although I know the law has gotten so complicated, and you pretty much need like an expert to interpret everything. But if make the attempt, and if you don't really understand, you don't understand. I mean, maybe you can find someone else who could better explain it or better follow it. And I don't blame you if you don't understand it. It is really complex. So I would just advise at least make the attempt to understand the laws in your state and arm yourself with that knowledge, I guess is what I'm saying. And thankfully, I haven't seen that provider in years at this point. I hope to never see them again. I'm not gonna like name drop them, and I don't want to like, I'm not interested in. I don't want to ruin like a particular person's career. Not that I think it would even go that far, but let's say just that it could. I wouldn't want that, and I'm more interested in the changing of systems, I guess you could say. Now, if someone's doing some absolutely like heinous stuff, that's another thing. But it was years ago at this point, and I don't know their exact age, but they seem to be pretty young. I think they were kind of new to the practice too. I think maybe they just kind of overreacted and overstepped a bit, So, and I know like in the last video, I like got a little bit heated towards the Living Well with Schizophrenia channel, for example, which while I have a great many criticisms, many more to come, it's not like I wish ill upon the host of that channel, Lauren, or what have you. I'm kind of trailing off on a whole nother topic, but just to be clear, like I don't wish like ill on that psychiatrist. I'm sure that overall they're probably a fine individual. I'm understanding with a lot of the things that goes on in the medical system. I may not like everything, but I do at least understand why they happen. And you got to remember that people are, doctors and other people in the medical system are still human, and sometimes it's the things they do. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some absolutely horrible people, and they do deliberately do insidious things, but not everything is so Machiavellian, I guess. Yeah, I don't wish ill upon them. I hope they're doing well, in fact. Just hopefully they're not overstepping as they did with me. So that's everything I've gone through when it comes to schizophrenia. Sorry, I'm kind of spacing out a little bit. We're almost done here. I also do the basic stuff like exercise, eating relatively well, and getting a little sunlight here and there. I'm not going to pretend like my diet is perfect or anything, but I think I do okay. So please don't annoy me with your unwanted medical advice. Not that I'm really reading the comments these days, although maybe I'll go back to that in time. I just got way too much going on. I don't want to worry about what random people are saying, even if it's positive. I mean, I appreciate leaving them if they are. Just coming from a genuine place, whether it's more critical or being positive or whatever, right? But I'm just not at a good point where I can just read them regularly, let alone answer them. Anyway, yeah, I don't want the unsolicited medical advice on the internet or in real life. Most likely, I know more about this than you. I definitely know more about myself than you. And let's face it, I'm sorry to say it, but I'm probably smarter than you too. We all have our shortcomings, and I'm sorry, it just happens to be yours, okay? You're better than me in other ways. This is just one way in which I'm better than you. Okay, I'm being a bit facetious, but in all seriousness, regardless of who you are and whether the advice is coming from a genuine place or if you're just being condescending to me or what have you, I don't want it and I don't need it. Like, why in the world would I follow health-related advice from someone on the internet at all, let alone in the YouTube comments, for crying out loud? Like, and also just the premise of giving me medical advice makes no sense either, no matter how you look at it. A rational person would not make decisions based on such advice, I would like to think anyway, and a rational person surely would not mold their life or health decisions around internet randos. However, if you feel the need to tell me things like go get help or do this other thing or try that thing, or you think I'm crazy or delusional or whatever, why would you ever expect that I would do what you're saying? If I am delusional, for instance, if I am completely of unsound mind, why in the holy mother of fuck would I follow your supposedly rational, logical advice? Regardless of my mental state and the actual quality of the advice, it just makes no sense, no matter how you look at it. If anything, you're being more irrational than me for thinking this is at all a good or effective idea in the first place. So, yeah, fuck you. And if you think the negativity or mockery or whatever in any way dissuades me from doing anything, be it online or in real life, because I do put up with a lot of crap in real life, you are dead wrong. I am nothing if not a fighter, and I will throw these hands, even if the entire planet unites against me, and I promise you, I will find a way to keep fighting even after my death. The end. Farewell.